The approach we took was to use an existing off-the-shelf wire feeder, figuring out how to bend the wire effectively, automating the system, and determining user input. Our initial idea was that by using a motor to control the angle of a metal plate, we can bend wire from a feeder at different radii. User position measured by an infrared distance sensor would serve as an input for changing the angle of the plate. We took multiple approaches to test the DI wire. We tested different angles using 1 or 2 chisels. The best angle seemed to be a single plate offset by an angle relative to the feeder output that could rotate up and down. We tested 2 different servo motors and ended up going with the larger one to have more power. We 3D printed a linear servo actuator that would move a lead screw, which is the long extended piece, and would allow us to push the wire bending plate up and down.
Before supplying power to the wire feeder from our Photon 2, we decided to test a separate wire supply. We found out we were able to manage with 5 volts, so we continued on to laser cutting a wooden base for the wire feeder in order to connect it to the linear actuator. For precision of the wire, we also printed a 3D nozzle and used a metal tube to help direct the wire. We soldered a feather wing doubler in order to provide more control through a pulse width modulator servo driver and to connect to a 5-volt power supply for the Photon 2.
We used the input from the IR sensor and mapped it to the linear servo actuator movement range. This information was then published so the other photon can react accordingly by changing the wire bending plate angle, and as a result changing the output of the wire feeder.
The motor's spinning, and so we can go F0 to turn it off. So we have here the 5-volt power coming in. That is powering both the board, the servo motor, and the DC motor. The DC motor controlled by a transistor, and the servo motor controlled by the feather wing.
You get to play with everything.
Be prepared to just think out of the box and just discover something new.
It's undescribable.
They engage with you either in a physical way or with your imagination.